Recording in progress.
Thank you. We would like to welcome you to our school board meeting. This is our regular meeting. Today is Monday, January 23rd. Board members present in the boardroom. We have members Donnelly, Holloman, Jacobs, Lessons, Wilson, and Bellamy. And I will announce when member Higgins joins us online. We also have Dr. Bryant and several staff, as well as our executive assistant, Amanda Foster, and our student representative, Miss Ellie Shaw. So with that, Ellie, you ready for the pledge? Whenever you're ready. Please join us. Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yes, I landed. Next is the land acknowledgement.
On behalf of the Anchorage School Board, I want to take a moment to recognize and offer gratitude for the sacred ancestral lands of the Dena'ina people. We acknowledge and appreciate that our offices, facilities, and schools are on these sacred indigenous lands, and we honor the traditional care that has been given to this land throughout generations. We are grateful for the opportunity to grow, learn, work, and create educational communities on this sacred land. We extend continued respect for the many cultures, creativity, and resilience of us indigenous peoples. Chanan.
And thank you very much. And that brings us to the approval of, first of all, I guess I should give my opening statement, which I did already partially. But again, thank you for attending and supporting the work of the Anchorage School District and the work of this board. We want to thank our students, parents, staff members, teachers, school business partners, the entire community. We thank you for your investment in our district with your time, your talents, and your tax dollars. Now that brings us to the approval of the agenda.
Madam President, I move to approve the agenda as written.
Is there a second? Second. Moved in second to approve the agenda as presented. Any opposition? See no opposition. The agenda is approved as presented. I also like to note that member Higgins has joined us virtually. And that brings us to item B, our reports, our military report. Welcome.
I'm Colonel Eric Dunn, the Mission Support Group Commander out on Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson. Thank you for giving me a few minutes tonight. For our report, it's really simply a huge thank you. So I know many of you are familiar with the military lifestyle and constantly moving. And every summer, the vast majority of our families have to incur moves. And so we have a lot of families coming in over the summer, every new school year. But we also have a lot of families that move in the middle of the school year. A lot of us have winter permanent change of station cycles. And so there are a lot of families that have to move and switch schools from different states, sometimes different countries to just because that's when their move falls. But I'll tell you, this school district has been across the board incredibly welcoming to the military families that move, particularly during the middle of the school year. We get positive feedback from families, not just for the schools on base, but all across the district. Just things like the admin staff and the teachers being welcoming and friendly to the new students. Everything from special programs and particularly our special needs children. It has just been astounding. And I just wanted to take, on behalf of Team J Bear, just thank all of you and and thank the families, thank the teachers, thank the school staff for just how we treat our military, particularly during the challenging time of moves. And then just a small positive note on base, we got to welcome our kids back at our different elementary schools on base. That was very fun. I got to do that myself. And so I'm thankful to the principals of Orion, Aurora, and Ursa Minor for allowing the base leadership to be a part of that. With that, that's all that I have. Are there any questions for me?
Thank you. Are there any questions for, is it Colonel Dunn?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you for being here. Yes, Member Holloman.
I did want to say what you're saying is something I've heard over the years. I've taught in ASD, and so I've been around a lot. And I really do appreciate it. I appreciate it being said out loud. I do hope the district at the administration level pays attention to whatever it is we're doing right. We don't get a lot of that. But also, I mean, certainly if there are other ways that we can make the transitions easier for families and for the kids, I hope, I don't know if we have an official conduit, but I assume as the liaison, you probably
Yes, absolutely. As a matter of fact, Adele Daniels right there is one of our school liaisons. She works in our group. We also have Holly who works with her, Holly Winters, and so they are awesome. They have great relationships with the principals, with the staff as a school district, and then we certainly have relationships with all of you. And so yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. It's good to hear. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, let's go with Member Lessons and then Wilson.
This really isn't a question, it's a comment. And I usually like to know exactly where I've seen the data I'm thinking about. And I don't remember where this came from, but my sense is that our military families are really doing an exceptional job of supporting their students. And I think that is it's something that has come through when I've looked to check in on how our students are doing. And it looks like they're getting a lot of home support. So I think that's something to be proud of.
Thank you.
Thank you. Member Wilson?
I don't have a question either. It's just a comment. I've worked with Adele for many years on the School Business Partnership Board, and I just wanted to say thank you to the military for your partnership with the school districts. So I love when the partnership goes two ways. It's not just the one. So the military does a great job partnering with the school district as well. So thank you.
Awesome. That's great to hear.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Not seeing any. Thank you, Colonel Dunn.
Thanks, ma'am.
Adele, thank you. Keep it up. Keep up the good work. And now our student report. Ms. Shaw.
Alrighty, so we had our last meeting on Tuesday, and we started this meeting with an ASD themed Kahoot, and then we got started because we had to combine this meeting with December's from the snow days. This month's school spotlights were Girdwood, Handshoe, Central Service, Chugiak, and Mears, where each SAB representatives gave a slideshow presentation highlighting things that make their school special. Following that, we briefly heard from Mr. Gustafson and Dr. Johnson, and then had a conversation with Paul McDonough about the graduation regalia process. And we were sent little surveys for each school to complete. And so we'll have a follow-up conversation with him in one of the next meetings. We then finalized and passed a resolution brought to us by Eagle River High School titled Implementing a Mental Health Day Policy in ASD. And finally, we wrapped up our meeting with announcements, including our president-elect elections that will happen next month for the student who will take my place next year. And then we are also proud to be sending 4 SAB high school students down to Juneau for the legislative fly-in with, I think it's next week or week after. Week after. So we are super excited to send them down there for that experience and then be able to hear back from them. So hopefully by next month, we will have a president-elect up here with me too. And then our next meeting will be on February 14th, Valentine's Day at 10:15 here in this boardroom. Okay.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Ms. Shaw, who is now a senior getting ready to graduate, and we just might not let you go. All right, thank you for that. And this next report, I'd like to invite Miss Melanie Sutton and Dr. Cohen up to the podium, please. We are lucky that Dr. Cohen's in town while we are meeting. We partner. She's doing some wonderful work with wellness, health and wellness. So I will turn it over to Mel. I'll turn it over to you to introduce Dr. Cohen. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Good evening, Dr. Bryant, President Bellamy, and school board members. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about the wellness partnership we developed with the Harvard's T.H. Chan School of Public Health and Merrimack College for evaluation of our wellness initiative.
Awesome.
So our ASD Wellness Initiative team project lead is our Chief Academic Officer, Sven Gustafson. I am the implementation lead for this project, and Julie Siri is our elementary contact, Director Siri. Dr. Cohen is our project evaluator, and Chris Opitz, ASD's Senior Director of Assessment and Evaluation, is on that evaluation team as well. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Cohen to tell you a little bit more about our partnership.
Awesome.
Great. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate the opportunity to be back here. I just really feel very at home at Anchorage, in part because between the cold temperature, the snow, lack of daylight, it's very similar to Boston. So feel right at home. And I'd also like to say that I have two of my colleagues from Boston joining me as well. My postdoctoral fellow, Dr. Deb Olarte, who's also first author on one of the publications that you'll be hearing about very soon. And also my research center manager, Tara Daly, as well. So just wanted to give you a brief overview of kind of the purpose of the Wellness Initiative. So this includes 30-minute lunch periods, which is up from about 20 minutes, as well as 30-minute recess, as well as more movement breaks throughout the school day. And so part of the goal of this research, and we'll talk about this in more detail in a minute, is really to understand a lot of the barriers as well as the successes that we're seeing within the school, and to really help figure out what are the best practices for schools that do implement this, as well as to inform policy. And one of the things that is so exciting about this initiative is that Anchorage is at the forefront of this in the United States. So my background is I am a school researcher, and I look at what are the most innovative and effective policies to improve children's nutrition, improve academic performance, and reduce health disparities. And so currently, for example, there's no minimum lunch period lengths as a policy in the United States. So oftentimes we'll go into schools and we know that even though we may have a lunch period length, that also includes the time it takes to walk to the cafeteria, wait in the lunch line. And sometimes we see students, not specifically in Anchorage, but in other places that we've been, who have 5 minutes to eat a lunch. And if this is something that a child relies on every single day throughout the school year, this has a really important impact. And so it was really exciting when Anchorage School District piloted this a few years ago, and I was able to fly out here and help to independently evaluate the impact. So I volunteered, I donated my time for that to be able to have a completely objective assessment. And so some of the results that kind of what's informed our research to date is actually what we found during that pilot evaluation. Mm-hmm. And because of that preliminary success that we saw during the pilot, we received a large grant from the National Institutes of Health to be able to come back and do this larger evaluation.
Awesome.
So our program history, as Dr. Cohen was referencing, is in May of 2019. There was a school board ad hoc committee which recommended a pilot based upon these factors. We then had our first year of the pilot program in 2019-20 school year. We had 19 participating schools in the Wellness Initiative study, which is 30 minutes of lunch, 30 minutes of recess, and additional physical activity opportunities within the school day. And then 2020-21, there was a slight impact as we did not attend school in person. And therefore, we turned to studying food and nutrition security as part of our study, how to access it, various different aspects of nutrition security. Then we returned to school in person, and we had 15 schools we revisited from the original pilot to check in and see how are things going now that we're back in person, and what does that really look like as you're implementing the initiative. This year, we're studying 15 schools. Some are returning and some are new. And they're once again working through the wellness initiative to help us learn again, as Dr. Cohen said, best practices to help our principals and staff understand what can benefit our students.
Right. So just to tell you briefly about our research team, I am the principal investigator, but we also have a really phenomenal team with really varied expertise as well, including one of my colleagues, Dr. April Bowling, who's also at Merrimack College, as well as Dr. Chris Economos and Ken Chu, who's at Tufts University, and then our local partner here, Dr. Katie Cueva, who's at University of Alaska, Anchorage. We have a full team of all University of Alaska students who are both college and also master's students in their dietetics programs who are all helping to collect the data as well. So we have a full team that's all here based in Anchorage. And then we also have some additional consultants with backgrounds in psychology as well as education. So Dr. Laura Kurtziel and Deb Margolis. And then also local collaborators here at the Alaska Public Health, including Carol Fink, Ann Potempa, and Lauren Kelsey. So to tell you a little bit more details about our current evaluation, the way that we're measuring the impact of this wellness initiative with the longer recess, lunch, and movement breaks is the first thing that we're doing is we're measuring consumption. So we're going into the cafeterias with, I should say, school permission, with parent permission, child consent as well. And what we're doing is we're measuring something called plate waste, which is actually measures to the exact percentage how much kids eat of every single meal component. Another thing that we're doing is we're measuring their physical activity levels. And what we're doing is providing children, as part of this study, something called an actigraph, which is basically, it's a very kind of broad activity monitor, does not track kids or anything like that. But what it does is it's highly sophisticated and measures all of their movement throughout the day. So it can give us very detailed information about their physical activity levels, as well as their sleep quality and duration. This was something that came up during the pilot study a few years ago that we weren't anticipating, was that we heard from a lot of parents that their kids slept better at night when they had more physical activity, which in turn could lead to better attention, behavioral behavior in the classroom, et cetera. So we want to objectively measure that. Additionally, measures of health status as well that we're getting with permission from Anchorage School District. And then we're also getting classroom behaviors, again, with parent permission and child permission. Teachers who decide to be in the study, which is also voluntary, fill out a validated Connors abbreviated behavioral scale, which basically talks about kind of disruptive behaviors in the classroom, focus, things like that, all the things that you would associate with like academic success and the ability to learn. And then we're also getting more information on kind of participation rates with school lunches, things like that as well, to really be able to objectively measure what is the impact in wellness initiative schools, as well as compare that with matched control schools. So we can look at the differences between schools that have the wellness initiative or different components of it compared with those that do not. I want to highlight two publications that we already have out. This was in collaboration with multiple people from Anchorage School District, including Melanie Sutton, Dr. Mark Stock, my postdoctoral fellow, Deb Olarte, led one of these studies as well. These are all the results documenting kind of the successes, challenges, and best practices from our pilot evaluation a few years ago. And similarly, any results that we get from this year, we're going to be prioritizing first. We're writing a report that we will disseminate as quickly as possible, recognizing that sometimes publications take time, but then also working on publications to help inform both best practices and decisions, policy decisions with Anchorage School District. All of our publications are in collaboration with people from Anchorage School District as well, and also to be able to highlight this at the national and international level as well, so that other countries, other states, other school districts can all learn from the best practices of Anchorage School District. Great. Thank you so much, and we're happy to take any questions that you might have.
Thank you for being here and making time for us. I'm sure we have some questions. Could you speak just a little bit on, it sounds like for those who may not be familiar with what happens in a school day, that this is not something that you just yes, you have to set aside time for meals, but this complements the learning. It does not distract from the learning.
Exactly. So what we really heard over and over again during the pilot initiative was that even though the school day is not getting longer, right? And so when we increase the amount of time for lunch and recess, that there are slightly less time for some of the other subjects, but what we were consistently hearing, and which we want to objectively measure this time around, is that the students were more efficient learners. And so if we have, 50 minutes for math, but the kids are only paying attention for the first 25 minutes, is that full 50 the best use of time compared with a student who maybe has 40 minutes for that, but is really focused that entire 40 minutes? And so that's just kind of a hypothetical example. But the point being is that with a better nourished child, with a child that has had more opportunity for movement breaks and physical activities, is that they truly can be more efficient learners. And this is something that we'll objectively measure.
Awesome. Thank you. Any other questions? Member Lessons?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for being here, and and thank you to, team research behind. It takes a lot of people to parse, to envision the project and then parse the data. I'm wondering if you could just sort of briefly summarize, there were two publications, and one of them is the teacher's experiences. And were there, I guess I didn't hear you speak to that specifically. And what were some of the takeaways that you found with the teacher's experiences implementing a school wellness as far as recommendations for best practices?
Yeah. Thank you. That's a fantastic question. What we found is overall, many teachers were really positive about this. And that one thing that will not surprise the school board is that it's not a one-size-fits-all model. It is such a diverse school district, diverse schools. And so really the thing that we heard over and over again is that when there was more teacher flexibility and the ability for the teachers to provide more input into how to make it work for them, they had a really positive experience. And so an example of that would be with the longer lunch periods. Oftentimes teachers had to help more to support those longer lunch periods. And so in schools where the principal gave the teachers the flexibility to determine how they wanted to do that, we saw some schools where we saw the first grade teachers swapping with the second grade teachers which days they wanted to cover the lunch duty. And they had a really positive experience compared with some teachers who, when they were, not to say told, but when they had less flexibility, oftentimes they could feel more frustration. And that's where we saw some of the challenges and barriers. Similarly, teachers, we often heard, felt really relieved that they now had permission to do a movement break. They didn't feel like they could be in trouble if, their kids were doing a quick loop outside, and they felt kind of this relief, this ability to be able to implement it on their own terms with that flexibility. Many schools, we also heard that it was easier when they had a full 30-minute lunch recess compared with 15 minutes, particularly in the wintertime. As you guys are aware, snow gear can be really challenging. But again, so thinking about that, working with the school and letting the teachers have a strong input, having that supportive environment and the buy-in from the principal really was a recipe for success.
All right, thank you. Member Wilson?
I'm just wondering how the pilot schools were selected.
They volunteered.
Mm-hmm. Member Holloman?
And this is a little more general. I'm going to say I'm not surprised that if we back off a little bit, let kids move around, do some things, that we get better results. as a teacher, I used to say we really can't get more productivity from our third graders until we get them into a house payment and a truck mortgage and a house payment they can't afford. And then you can put that kind of pressure that makes adults work harder, but you just can't do it to kids. And I'm kind of wondering if other studies you've looked at and all sort of aim at how much productivity can you get out of a child during a school day. And part of it goes to the fact that if we have a kid that struggles to read, then we put them in a remedial reading class and we give them extra work. And we like bear down on them to learn this thing that they're having trouble learning with. I've always felt it was counterproductive at some point, and that as adults, we get caught up in wanting really badly to have this work right, that we make it harder for everybody involved. And I'm just wondering if you know research that supports that and other, I'm going to say, distracting activities, just like physical movement, that aren't directly on task, but actually make us succeed at our task in a better way.
So I think that's a fantastic question. Some of the best prior evidence that we have is the unintended consequences of withholding recess. And so oftentimes withholding recess has been used if a child is either as punishment or if they're falling behind in schoolwork, et cetera. And really what has been found is that when you withhold that type of movement break, it actually backfires. And so that's really where the strongest evidence to date is. But actually the work that we did with Anchorage School District was actually some of the first that was really looking at that impact of physical activity, really focusing on academic performance. Previously, I've published looking at the impact of what children eat at lunch and the impact on executive functioning, which is directly related to factors like academic performance, for example. And there's actually really strong evidence that shows that when kids eat healthier, they're better learners as well. I think your point was more to the physical activity side. And so there is a strong foundation for this research, but what's so exciting about the research that we're able to do in collaboration with Anchorage School District is that it's really at the forefront in terms of being able to really create a stronger evidence base around this, with kind of thinking about this more holistic approach for the whole day.
Okay. Thank you. Member Jacobs?
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Dr. Cohen and team, for being with us tonight. And thank you, Ms. Sutton, for your work on this too. Maybe a question for Dr. Bryant and his team. I'm wondering if there might be a way for us to integrate the ongoing cohort and the pilot data as part of our goal monitoring. Is that something that we'll have an opportunity to suss out as to how that cohort of schools is doing as we're looking at some of our outcomes pertaining to math, reading proficiency, and CCL data?
Thank you, Member Jacobs. That is certainly something I'd love to give more thought to figure out ways that we can incorporate regular updates on this, as it is extremely important.
So, Dr. Cohen, you've seen our policy that we revised our policy. It's on non-action tonight for, before we vote on it. But your thoughts? Do you have any thoughts about how wonderful that is? No, I'm joking. Don't want to put words in your mouth, but what are your thoughts?
It is wonderful. What I think is really exciting about it is that there's really strong evidence that really supports it. And what I think is also really exciting about it is that it really, given the evidence base that exists currently, I think that there's strong research that would suggest already that these type of policy changes have the potential to improve children's nutrition, but also improve academic performance, and really potentially reduce some of the disparities that we're seeing, particularly that widened during COVID, both health disparities and educational disparities. And I think it has very strong potential to be able to move all these child outcomes in the right direction.
Great, thank you. Yes, Member Donnelly?
So some of our schools currently utilize lunch periods for study when students are falling behind. So if you're advising they shouldn't do that, And what are you advising them to do to replace that study time to ensure those students get to catch up?
Thank you for your question. And I just want to make sure I fully understand it. Were you saying that this occurs during lunch or during recess?
Recess. Yeah, recess, I mean.
So one thing that might be considered, and again, I want to emphasize this is not a one-size-fits-all model. One of the things we started data collection today, for example, we are at Denali Montessori, and one of the really interesting things that we've been seeing is around lunch in the classroom. And so we actually were able to observe many of the lunch periods today, including I had the fortune to go into multiple kindergarten classes. And one of the things that I observed was that when they had the flexibility to have in the classroom, many of the students were done within about 15 minutes. Many were not. And so having that full 30 minutes made a big difference for many of those kids. But the teacher was actually able to start doing reading exercises with many of the students in the classroom who had finished lunch first. And so this was a really interesting opportunity to be able to see, well, if there are concerns, for example, around those kids who finished early, right? This was a really, I thought, innovative way to be able to work with the kids in the classroom, be able to continue doing that type of work, while also giving those kids that need more time that flexibility. I also, again, want to emphasize that that may not work for all teachers. And I think oftentimes teachers can be the best source of this type of advice in terms of what worked for these kindergarten teachers. It seems they chose to continue lunch in the classroom, and it seemed to be working very well. I imagine that in some of the other schools, teachers may say, I really do not want lunch in my classroom, and might have some really creative ideas in terms of when would be the best time so that it doesn't displace the recess.
So what would be a specific suggestion you would make to the teachers and leadership at specific schools that here in our district today are utilizing the recess periods for imposing discipline to get kids to finish their studies?
What I would never want to tell a teacher or a school what to do. But what I might say is that some of the evidence suggests that in fact, disciplinary issues can actually worsen when recess is withheld. We often see in schools that when recess is withheld, for example, you actually see more disciplinary referrals to the principal in the afternoon, for example. And we know when they're in the principal's office, they're not learning either. And so there is some evidence that suggests that being able to determine other type of win blocks might be what I need. I think I've seen that in Anchorage school. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we use the same term in my own school district. So I thought that was a familiar term, but I apologize if it wasn't. But being able to figure out what is the most effective use of time within that school to be able to provide these opportunities. I think specifically for disciplinary referrals, thinking about there's many other methods that schools have used. Whether they are kind of, again, it's so grade specific, it can be really child specific, but different types of disciplinary options for students that don't involve withholding recess, because in fact, it can help improve the child's behavior when they come back from lunch and recess.
What are some specific examples of those?
Some of the things that I've seen in other schools, for example, that don't include sending a child to the principal, for example, is oftentimes even having, again, grade specific, but oftentimes even having like the equivalent of, they would not call it a timeout corner, but the equivalent of a quiet corner that often has like fidget devices, for example, figuring out what is the cause of it. Is this something that is kind of more behavioral based? Was there maybe some sort of interaction where with another student where there's specifically some sort of I don't want to say negative interaction, but is this based on kind of something that can be resolved with another student through some specific mediation? Is this related to the child's behavior, where maybe even something the equivalent of, if it's a child that actually has, would be better with being able to use, for example, a fidget device in the classroom, being able to make these type of exceptions for students where they're not allowed, where it actually can help with reorient the child's behavior to prevent it to begin with.
Is your report going to include options for teachers and principals like that? Or?
So what our hope is, we are going to be interviewing teachers, and we are specifically going to be talking about kind of disciplinary issues. And so where we hear them, we will absolutely be documenting kind of best practices. One of the hypotheses, meaning one of the things that we think will result from these movement breaks, is actually seeing a decrease in these disciplinary issues to begin with, which in turn would actually make the lives of teachers easier and lead to fewer incidences where we would even need to, think about what are these solutions. Of course, it's never going to be perfect. There's always going to be disciplinary issues, of course. But absolutely, when we talk to teachers, and in fact, we can specifically ensure that we ask questions about that, since it sounds like that's something the school board would be interested in. We'd be happy to specifically document that as well while we do the interviews.
Well, thank you, Dr. Cohen. Thank you, Member Donnelly. Let's move over to Member Lessons.
Thank you. This is really wonderful. Can you just give us a broad, are the 15 schools that we have enrolled in it this year that you'll be looking at, I guess the enrolled schools and the control, do they include neighborhood Title I schools? I mean, is it a representative mix of the district as a whole? Do you feel like you're getting a good cross section? I guess is my question.
That was specifically one of the goals of this, is that we really wanted to be able to have results that are generalizable, meaning that we're not going to one specific type of school and then making recommendations that may not be applicable to other schools. And where we see even potentially consistent themes, if we see, for example, we're consistently hearing the same things in Title I schools, but we're not hearing it in others, we can also kind of specifically say, in these type of schools, here are the best practices. Of course, it will be shared with everyone for everyone to consider, but knowing that there may be unique challenges, for example, for them to be able to kind of implement what might work best in those schools as well. But the goal of this is, in fact, to be representative and to have representative not just of the schools, but also of the families that participate in this as well.
Okay, thank you. Follow up?
Yep. Could you just tell us a little bit more about the scope of this NIH grant? Is it a 1-year, multi-year? Will you be back again? Can you tell us a little bit more?
So the reason I'm smiling, such a big smile, is because I do get to come back again. And I really love coming here. And so far I've only come in winter. I do hope eventually I can come during a different season. But the full grant is for 5 years. It started last year. We originally were planning to come out, and then because of the COVID related challenges, decided to postpone this type of data collection until this year. We were able to interview teachers and principals, really more on the focus around the impact of COVID and the potential benefits, as well as really understanding. One thing that was really exciting actually was the resilience of the wellness initiative. The fact that so many schools have continued it is almost unheard of in our field in terms of that type of resiliency. And so thinking about the potential of this type of policy, even during the greatest hardships, and in fact, many of the schools said it actually was helping them. One of the key things we keep hearing over and over again is the impact that COVID had on social and emotional learning and the opportunities that the Wellness Initiative provides for this social and emotional learning, both in the cafeteria and recess. And that's one of the most powerful things that we kept hearing. And so we now have, including this year, we have 4 years of data collection. And so I will be able to return to Anchorage all of those years. Each year we will be providing a report to Anchorage School District to keep you updated on all of our progress so that you do not have to wait 4 years for results. We will be doing it in as timely a manner as possible because we understand that this is really important to help this district inform decisions, as well as schools that may be deciding if they want to be implementing the wellness initiative that are not currently, depending on what occurs with the wellness policy. And so I will have the opportunity to return, which I'm very excited about, and we'll be able to continue our collaboration.
Okay. And so with that, I want to thank
another question. Oh, Pat's online too.
Pat. I see you, Pat. I see your hand. You have a question? Unmute.
Put it off mute, huh? Yeah, first of all, I just wanted to say just a couple of things real quick. One, thank you for this presentation. This information is interesting, and I think it can make a difference. My only concern in regards to this is how we treat different schools. At one time, I know within the school district that this would be 10 years ago, the Title I schools, the teachers tend not to let the kids eat during the first hour. If they came in, and a lot of them being dropped off by the parents right at the beginning, and they didn't have access to the same level of nutrition. And the schools that were more well-to-do, they always accommodated. So whatever we do in this regard, my only thing is that we're looking first at the kids and less at what each school want to do. And I think some of the things in here are really valuable for discussion, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Higgins. Okay, not seeing any other hands. Come back to you, Mr. Donnelly.
Thank you, Ms. President. You mentioned sleep as one of the factors you're studying. Are you including some sort of analysis of seasonal affective disorder and the inverse that we also have when it comes to as we get closer to the summer months with the excessive amount of sunlight we get, making it hard for kids to get to sleep?
That is a phenomenal question. Part of our research is every time we go and we give a child those activity monitors, which also monitor sleep, we are monitoring the time of sunrise and sunset that entire week. And so we actually have some collaborators who specialize in specifically that, because you are absolutely correct. We want to be able to look at the potential impact that the time of year potentially has, as well as that. Obviously, that's not something that we as researchers or you as a school district can control, but it can help to kind of help inform decisions, things like that as well. And I think that's such an important point that we take into account when we're also looking at the results. And so really accounting for that kind of seasonal effect that we see both with diet, diet, physical activity, the behavioral, disruptive behaviors that we're seeing, all these different aspects, and being able to look at the impact on sleep quality as well by season. So you are spot on in terms of, that's a really important line that we will be including.
Okay. And with that, again, thank you very much for your time and your expertise. And the Team Alaska. Yes. Anyway, thank you guys. We appreciate you.
Thank you again so much for the opportunity.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And if we could get a copy of those slides so we can get the links to the articles, Mel. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, and that now brings us to item C, our goal monitoring. Dr. Bryant.
Thank you, Madam President. I'll let the slides get pulled up. Let's go to slide 1. All right, here we go. All right, thank you. So today the board will receive a technical briefing on Algebra 2 completion rates, which are an indicator for the board's college, career, and life readiness goal. We'll review the format of the slides, and the next board meeting will have a more in-depth discussion on the data and next steps. So just to remind the public, our board goal is for 90% of students to graduate life ready as well as college and career ready by 2026. One of several metrics that we use to track progress towards success is the percentage of students that pass Algebra 2. Our interim goal is that 32% of students in spring 2023 will successfully complete Algebra 2. Next slide. This slide represents our year-to-year completion rate of Algebra 2 over time. The dotted line, it's a very small dotted line, but it represents our target, which is 32%, compared to our current completion rate, which is 30%. And on the table at the bottom of the slide, you'll see the same data as well as the actual number of students who are completing Algebra 2. And this slide shows the Algebra 2 completion rate broken down by grade level. It'll also allow the board to see a comparison between 2022 and 2021 by grade level as well. This next chart will allow the board to compare spring 2022 with spring 2021 data as well. The columns also disaggregate the data, or rather the rows disaggregate the data by race, ethnicity, and special populations. And at the bottom portion of the chart, the data is disaggregated by school type, such as comprehensive, charter, and special schools. And these next few slides will provide an overview of the district's strategies towards improving Algebra 2 completion. So this slide will provide the board with an overview of the overarching K through 9 grade goals, which include ensuring student access to Algebra 1, which will lay the foundation for success in Algebra 2. The instructional focus part focuses on the mathematics curriculum and the emphasis on multi-tiered systems of supports framework that will set all students up for success. And then lastly, at the bottom portion of this slide, there's an overview of the approach to the goals, which includes a continuous loop, professional learning, impactful instruction, and data-driven practices. And on this slide, it provides a summary of the current strategies in place, which includes curriculum, instruction, professional learning, data discussions, and our multi-tiered systems of support framework. And there's also a report of our progress to date on those items. And then lastly, this is an appendix that defines for the board how we categorize comprehensive, alternative, charter, and special schools. And with that, that concludes my report, and we look forward to our more in-depth academic discussion at the next board meeting.
Okay, thank you. Were we going to have two today or just the one? Just the one and then next time, okay. All right, so you have the report before you. Please send in your questions in advance if you can, please, so that we'll be ready to answer your questions. Sure, you can have a clarifying question.
Sure, thank you. Just really quickly, is under the special schools and programs credit recovery, does ASD virtual fit into that or not?
So if you look at slide 10, you'll see exactly what we define as special schools and programs. And I do not see ASD virtual on that list. So that's something that we'll note to clarify at the next discussion.
Yeah. Make sure it's in your list of questions, remember, lessons, so we don't lose it. Okay, seeing no other questions. Thank you, Dr. Bryant. So now we are going to move on to our next item, which is our public comment section. The board sets aside an hour at the beginning of its meetings and an hour at the end for public comment. So we are happy that you're here, and during public comments, board members will not answer questions or engage in discussion with members of the public. This is the public's time to speak and the board's time to listen. When you enter the boardroom, there's a blue and white sheet that pretty much goes over the expected decorum for inside the boardroom. If you are here to participate in public comment, you will have 3 minutes to speak. Each person is allowed one opportunity to testify or comment on a non-action item. When 30 seconds of your 3 minutes remain, you will hear a little bell, and that's just to let you know to finish up your thoughts because you have 30 seconds remaining. An action item memo is first introduced, will be introduced by the vice president, and if seconded by another board member, the president will open the floor for public comment on that action item. Again, you will have 3 minutes to speak with that same notification at the end of the 3 minutes. So we welcome your contributions to our meetings. I just want to go over a few rules of the boardroom. We use Robert's Rules of Order to conduct our business. And so just a few reminders of cautions. Do not attack a member's or a speaker's motive. Speakers may point out what he or she believes to be the natural consequence of a board action, but may not engage in speech that personally attacks others. Please refrain from disturbing the meeting. And basically that means no cheering, applause, or outbursts. Attendees will not be permitted to interrupt the business of the school board. Language, no profanity or foul language. There is no place in this boardroom of the Anchorage School Board for profanity and swearing. If you have handouts that you would like for the board to have, please give them to Ms. Foster, seated to my left, and she will make sure the board will get whatever it is that you would like for us to have. So with those guidelines in place, we do not have any student testimony tonight, but we do have community speakers signed up to speak. I'd like to call Ted Phelps and Luke Halter. If you'll come to the front, please. Ted, you will go first. And welcome. You will each have 3 minutes. And your mics are already on. That little red, that means it's on.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Good evening. I appreciate everyone taking the time to hear what we have to say. So first, I just want to offer empathy for you guys. The plan I'm here to comment on is lengthening the school day, and I know it's a tough situation we're all in. But I'm here to speak on how it affects our business and the kids we coach. So yeah, I'm the Director of Youth Programs at the Alaska Rock Gym. And yeah, we offer programs for kids from age 4 to high school. And we have a lot of our kids there after school time, obviously. And has anyone here been to the Alaska Rock Gym? That's 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Yeah, it's a crazy time. It's very busy. It's our busiest time. And our current youth program schedule is built to accommodate the following, the school schedule, obviously. The other one is getting enough time for the kids to actually climb and making sure the kids get home before it's too late. And obviously the last thing is for our general membership, we want to make sure the kids are out of there at 6 o'clock so the general membership can actually climb without the kids being around. We've looked at this plan and, that has been put forward, and we have decided that we just can't change our schedule around that. We have to stick with what we have because we just can't have kids in the gym past 6 o'clock. Unfortunately, the way we've kind of structured things, kids have already paid for this climbing time, and we're not really sure how we're going to make all that work. So that's the big effect on the kids, and then our coaches too. If we end up having kids who don't come, we're probably going to end up cutting coaches' hours, and those coaches do depend on those hours. So that's kind of the big impacts that we're seeing on this. We'll also add that adding days to the end of the year would be a much easier thing for us as a business and a community to work around than 5 weeks of totally rearranging our schedules to try and accommodate the changes. I've spoken with the dance theater across the street, and they're in the same situation. Their programs are also scheduled in a similar way, so they're going to be kind of in the same boat as we are. But yeah, so that is what I have to speak on for tonight. I appreciate you guys taking the time, and thank you.
And thank you very much. Okay, next, Mr. Halter.
Thank you very much. Yes, my name is Luke Halter, and I've been a youth educator and a coach for over 15 years. I'm currently the head coach for youth programs at the Alaska Rock Gym. As we heard from Ted just now, many essential youth programs will be unable to alter their schedules around the school day extension proposal, and I'm here to strongly advocate that this proposal not be adopted for that reason. But there are other strong reasons for not adopting this change, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the effect on our kids, not just our businesses. A child's educational experience does not end with the school day. Across Anchorage, extracurricular activities, school programs provide essential, unique, and enriching experiences for music, sports, arts, languages, tutoring, and many more. Adolescence is a time of significant growth and development made inside the brain, and it's worth thinking about the range of activities and experiences our children are receiving. We have to ask how important these experiences are in shaping the sort of brain our children will take into adulthood. Family routine is also an important part of our children's educational experience, giving a child's life structure that promotes healthy rhythms in sleep and eating schedules. These rhythms will be directly impacted by school timetables. New and different experiences help children develop an independent identity, explore grown-up behavior, and move towards independence as they learn to take healthy risks. These experiences help children find new, creative, and expressive outlets for their feelings at a time when children might be expressing and trying to control new emotions. These experiences help youth practice boundaries, limit setting, and goal setting with guidance from professional role models, while also building social and emotional connections with other youth. If you choose to adopt this schedule change, you will choosing to deprive children of these enriching experiences that promote healthy growth and development. Without these positive experiences during youth brain development, our children will be more likely to choose risky behavior, express more and stronger emotions, and make impulsive decisions. Students, parents, teachers, and supportive organizations like mine would be able to plan for and have routines disrupted far less if it were instead considered to extend the school year by the requisite days instead of adopting this months-long daily disruption. Thank you. I yield my time.
Thank you very much. Next, I'd like to call Kaylee Berry and Allison Myers.
Hello, my name is Kaylee, and I'm here tonight to talk about how valuable it has been for me to work with an instructional coach and to advocate for the position to remain a strong and vital force in our schools. When I first started with ASD, the coach at my building was one of the first people to reach out to me and welcome me into the community at my school. She took the time to learn about me both professionally and personally. She asked about my strengths and areas of growth as an educator. She asked what support would look like for me, and she took the time to learn how she could best help me so that I could better support my students. The first 4 years of my career as an educator, I worked in a district that did not have the support of instructional coaches. And I can honestly say that I grew more in the first year working with an instructional coach than I had in the other years. I could sit here for hours and let you know the value that the instructional coaching position has added into my career. But at the end of the day, it boils down to the fact that my biggest cheerleader is just a short walk away from my classroom. And on any given week, I've had anywhere from 3 to 5 personalized mini professional development sessions to refine my skills as a teacher. The Instructional Coach Handbook for ASD says coaching is the linchpin for our vision of excellent instruction every day for every student everywhere. I wholeheartedly agree that in my experience, the instructional coach position has been that vital element to my professional growth and development to ensure that I am delivering excellent instruction every day for all of my students. I can't help but wonder then, is this the best decision? Is it best to cut the position that this very district has deemed the linchpin to our success? I urge you to take a look at all of the potential a position like this has when you allow the coaches to be working in their buildings with their staff rather than being pulled out of the buildings to go elsewhere. Come into the schools and see what it looks like when a teacher like me seeks out the support of a coach and how quickly we start collaborating to find a better way to deliver that excellent instruction to our students. See how we set goals and create plans to become better teachers. See how we put that plan into action. Come and see how we gather data to monitor our progress towards our goal. Come and see how much capacity a position like this holds. While I do not envy the position that any of you are in as you are making decisions regarding the budget deficits that our district is facing, I also do not envy any of the new teachers who will be coming into our district with one less person to support them. I do not envy the K-3 teachers as they embark on implementing a new reading curriculum with one less person supporting them. I do not envy the teacher who sees room for growth in their professional skills and doesn't know where to go to get that support for that growth. I don't envy those teachers because until I worked with an instructional coach, I was each of those teachers. I know what it's like to have a coach, and I know what it's like without a coach, and this difficult career becomes a little bit easier with a coach by your side. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Myers.
Good evening. First, thank you for allowing me to speak today. My name is Allison Myers, and I'm here to ask the school boards to consider keeping ASD virtual as an option for its students. My son Elijah has attended ASD virtual for the past 3 years, and the ASD virtual program has been such a blessing to our family. The teachers are amazing, and the learning system Calvert, even with its occasional glitches, has been a great learning tool. There are several families like my own who have utilized the program for the last 2 to 3 years, and while I cannot speak for all families, for mine, the program has proven to be an awesome learning experience for my son. Elijah is currently in the 3rd grade, but in the 2019-2020 school year for kindergarten, he attended an ASD school in person. During this school year, he was regularly bullied by another classmate. This classmate not only bullied my son, but several other students in the class. The situation was brought up to the teachers, the parents, and to the administrators, yet nothing was done. This happened right before the pandemic, so the school year ended abruptly, but we knew we wouldn't be sending him back to that school. I had looked at the homeschool programs offered through the school district and inquired about them. But when I learned that the assigned teacher was only there to consult, not actually teach lessons, I was torn. I began to research our options, and that's when my husband and I decided we would try the virtual program when students went back to the classroom in 2021. We decided to stick to the program because of how much our son had blossomed during that time. The virtual program has given my son a safe place to be himself, to speak freely, and to learn without worrying about any negativity during his learning experience. He has made friends, improved his test scores consistently every quarter, and has come to love going to school. The teachers make the learning experience engaging and rewarding and are always available to help in whatever way they can. Whether it's to walk him through a lesson he doesn't quite understand, helping him get in some extra reading time, or giving this mom a virtual hug, letting her know she's doing a great job. Whenever I reach out, they are always there and ready to help and listen. I have so much more that I could say, but 3 minutes is not enough time to say it. I will end with this. At the last meeting, I heard one of your board members state something to the effect of how he loves hearing from the kids about their experiences and that the kids are what it is really all about. I am hoping that this rings true as you are making your decisions and that it is about every kid, including the ones that have benefited and will continue to benefit from this program. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen.
Thank you very much. Our next 2 speakers are online. James Day. Mr. Day, can you unmute? *6 to unmute, Mr. Day. So I will come back to Mr. Day. Let's try Mr. Boyle. David Boyle. *6 to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. You have 3 minutes and welcome.
Thank you. President Bellamy, school board members, my name is David Boyle, and I want to thank you both for the opportunity to speak and for your service to the community. Before I begin my topic, I noted that the board asked the military representative, what more could the district do to serve the military children? I would suggest the district implement the Purple Star program, which the State Department of Education has posted on its webpage. The state has established a Purple Star Advisory School Board as well. Already, the Fairbanks, Kodiak, and Ketchikan school districts have implemented this program. And with the largest military student population, Anchorage should do the same. Now to speak on my topic, which is equity. As you know, we have an approved equity policy in the district, which is not being applied equally. Board Policy 614, Instructional Equity says, equity is a fair treatment, access, opportunity, and advancement for all people. Board believes in equity for all students for their academic achievement. And Board Policy 410, non-discrimination in district programs and activities states, the district programs and activities shall be free from discrimination based on sex, race, color, religion, gender ID, etc. Regarding discrimination based on gender, I note that male student achievement is far below female student achievement in the state's standardized test, PEAKS and the Alaska STAR. The a matter of fact, since the 2016-17 school year, males in the school district have consistently performed about 8 raw percentage points below females. Now that's, by the way, 7 years of data. This equates to about 20% lower achievement on these standardized tests. We have to ask, why are girls outperforming boys? Are girls being favored over boys, especially in elementary classrooms? Or is it because boys lack a role model at home? There aren't many male elementary school teachers. Nationally, about 10% of the elementary teachers are male. So boys have no role model in the earliest, most impressionable years in elementary school. Maybe the instructional practices do not fit a boy's learning style. We know that boys do learn differently. Many of them prefer the hands-on learning style. By the way, I'd like to know the percentage of male elementary classroom teachers in the school district. If it is low, I encourage the district to actively recruit more male early education teachers so boys have a role model they can look up to. If a boy is not encouraged to succeed, both by a lack of parental guidance and the failure to match a boy's learning style, then that boy will usually fail farther behind, and ultimately, many will drop out of school. There is a gender gap in K-12 education. We must recognize it, confront it, and solve it in the name of equity. It is a fair thing to do. Finally, I noted that the school board discussed, quote, systemic racism in its anti-racism policy discussion, and it appeared as
Mr. Boyle, I'm sorry, your time is up, but thank you very much. Let's go back to Mr. Day. Mr. Day, can you unmute? Star 6
Hello?
to unmute.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. You have 3 minutes.
All right. All right, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I'm speaking about the virtual ASD. Cutting out the virtual program will be cutting our children short and putting them at risk of failure. The pandemic isn't over, nor are snow days. Virtual ASD is the ultimate safety net for our children in these times of uncertainties. We can at least guarantee them their education. No child should have to worry about how would I get my education if schools are closed. When we clearly have a solution for the problem, cheating them is cheating our future. I myself have 2 children that in the ASD virtual learning program, and they are excelling at a faster rate than in-person learning. With virtual learning, my children are able to get their education while learning basic life skills and trades. So in more ways than one, the virtual program is a necessity for all our children and in their future. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much, Mr. Day. And let's see, let's call forward Lauren Kelsey and Norman Beasley the second. Welcome. You have 3 minutes. Lauren, you first.
Thank you so much, President Bellamy and all the members for allowing us to speak. It is still fairly close to the new year where many of us have resolutions to be more physically active and eat healthier. And so seems appropriate and exciting to be here voicing my support for one of your non-action items, the revision to the school board policy on student nutrition and physical activity. When Member Holloman mentioned during the military report that you don't very often get to hear what you're doing right at the school, I think this is one of those times that you should really be proud of all the good work that you're doing around supporting your students in this area. Not only are your health and physical educators a really strong program, but the process that you went through to engage the public, engage many of you on the school board in this review process, having people from secondary and elementary education on what would this really look like in the schools, teachers, and then the online survey to get community members, as well as having multiple family and parents on the review committee, I think you should be proud of the process that you went through to make sure that this revision was meeting the needs of your community. And just wanted to point out, I work in public health and physical activity and nutrition, and these wellness policies are required for any school district that participates in the school lunch program. But a lot of times people just kind of pass a policy, it sits on the book, and it's not really looked at for what fits well with your community, what can be implemented well. And this is not an example of that. You guys are really doing a good job of making sure it meets the needs of your students. So just wanted to stop there. I know you got to hear earlier about all the research around how physical activity and nutrition both impacts a student's health, but also their learning, also their in-classroom behavior, also their ability to sleep and have good mental health. There's quite a few that it spreads out into a lot of pieces of our lives. So it's a nice opportunity, and just thank you for taking this support to make sure that the students at Anchorage School District are as healthy as they can be. That's all.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kelsey. Mr. Beasley.
Yeah, thanks for having me here. Just here to just kind of talk about what I've been dealing with for the past 4 years of me actually deep diving into my two daughters that are in the school system. I have a 15-year-old back when she was in 10-year-old going to 11. There's a lot that's being done in schools that's kind of not being told to parents. It really ticked me off, to say the least. I had to learn about restorative justice through my daughter. I didn't actually understand even what that was. Took about 7 hours of watching videos, reading data. I'm a data cruncher. I like data. I like numbers. She got kind of, I'm not going to say attacked, but she was pulled down the stairs by her backpack. And then they said, do you want to talk to your assailant? And that's what they asked her. And then I kind of looked at myself and said, if somebody punched me in the face, I'm not really going to sit down with them. They're probably going to get choked out, because I'm not just going to get attacked and not kind of like defend myself. That was something that happened about 2 years ago, about 3. And then she kind of told me just recently, when I kind of found out about what that phrase was. That's a problem with me. I understand schools or whatever you're trying to do, help these kids get them through life, understand lessons. There's no adult in this world that's going to get thrown downstairs, that's going to want to talk to the person that threw them down the stairs. Guaranteed. I find it ridiculous. On top of that, I had to listen to my 9-year-old that was 7. Had to explain to her that color doesn't matter, because she was learning about what Black people are and then what white people are. And then having to go sit in a more advanced placement, because I pay attention to my daughters. I spend the money, I spend the time, I grind. That's what a parent's supposed to do. And yeah, so my kids have a bright future ahead of me because I spend the time. And that's a problem for me, is when the school starts trying to step into my time. They're my kids. Let me know what I need to do. Hand me the paperwork. Grind at me. They're my kids. That's starting to be pushed out of the way. I respect what you're trying to do, because there are kids that don't have parents like me. They don't stay there. They're gone. I haven't seen my dad since I was 9. Okay, I'm 36. I just saw him this year. I get it. It sucks. But sometimes you need to stop looking at the numbers and start looking at the kids outside of numbers. That's me genuinely looking at what's happening here. You're trying to get doctors, you're trying to get therapists, you're trying to get counselors, you're trying to do stuff. You're just not, you're doing the best of what you can do, but you're starting not to look at what's going to be the best. That's all I got.
Thank you very much. And that concludes our last person wanting to comment. There are attached to the agenda, you will see some written public comments. So now we are on, that brings us, to item E, our consent agenda.
Madam President, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Moved in second to approve the consent agenda as written. We'll do a voice because Member Higgins is not in the room. Whenever you're ready, Amanda.
Member Holloman,
Yes.
Member Higgins,
Yes.
Member Donnelly,
Yes.
Member Lessons,
Yes.
Member Wilson,
Yes.
Member Jacobs,
Yes.
Student Representative Shaw,
Yes.
President Bellamy.
Yes. Sorry, it's up now. Thank you. And a motion to approve the consent agenda passes unanimously. Thank you. And that brings us to our action item.
Madam President, I move to approve ASD Memorandum number 097, approval of 2022-2023 calendar adjustments due to extended weather-related school closures. Is the recommendation of administration that the school board approve adjustments to the school calendar outlined in this memorandum.
Second.
Moved in second to approve memorandum number 097. Calendar adjustments due to extended weather-related school closures. Is there anyone, did anyone sign up to testify on this one? Okay, no one signed up to testify on this one. Let's just start with you, Dr. Bryan.
Sure. So I've shared the details of this plan in prior discussion with the board. So essentially this memorandum just summarizes that plan, which would be to make a minor adjustment to the week in February, converting parent-teacher conference days into full days of instruction and converting a day that was previously for staff into a full instructional day for students. And then lastly, adding 30 minutes to the school day effective January 30th until spring break. This was done in close collaboration with union leadership, which includes teachers, principals, Totem, and others. And as I've said on numerous occasions, there's no perfect plan out of 6 snow days, which is truly unprecedented. But this plan truly prioritizes student learning, places an emphasis on the importance of instruction, particularly given where we're at in terms of student proficiency, both in ASD and across the state, but is also minimally disruptive to the calendar. So with that, I will open it up to any questions.
All right, thank you, Dr. Bryant. Questions, board members? Any questions that were not answered before? Yes, Member Holloman.
And I don't really have a question, but comments. I'll support this. And I can't remember when we had to do this last. It's been a while because I was still in the classroom, and that's been a while. And to a lot of the letters we've gotten and comments, it's not ideal. Teachers optimize what they have and what they're accustomed to, and even changing the length of a period. You know, this is going to get added to a class time somewhere. It throws you off your game a little bit, and that's never good. But the only alternative really is to add days somewhere. And the fundamental flaw in that is they won't be very well attended. Mm-hmm. If we take spring break days, or we take days at the end of the school year and add them to the calendar, teachers go into that knowing they're only going to see some of their students. And that kind of demolishes everything. You really can't cover anything very important if you know that 25% or 30% of your students are likely to not be in the room that day. So I know a lot of people are unhappy about this. The phrase checking a box has come up in a number of the communications. In a sense, that's true, but only because we have to follow the law. And the law specifies the number of school days and says we have to make it up if we don't attend those. I know everyone is going to try to make it work and get something useful out of it. But it is an unfortunate circumstance that we didn't have much control. I think what the administration has brought to us grabs some time back to make instructional time without screwing up the schedules of thousands of people. So thank you.
Thank you, Member Holloman. Any other questions or comments? Member Lessons?
Yeah, this is not a question, it's a comment to share that I really wrestled with this. I had parents come up and say, this is wonderful, I can work 30 minutes longer. I had parents share with me that this was terrible, that they had important medical appointments for their children that were scheduled on a regular basis. We heard from community members, business owners, and said, this is really going to cut into our, our revenue streams, our models. We heard a little bit of that tonight. And it's really a terrible situation, and it's not of our making. However, I thought a lot about recess and lunch recently, and for a while I was thinking, wait a second. Recess and lunch and frankly specials are time that either shouldn't be made up with instruction or are gone, poof, right? How can you make up an art class just here and there? But then I continue to crunch the numbers, and I'm quite satisfied that we actually aren't even making up the entirety of the minutes that we've lost. And I think that in the end, this is the best of a bad situation. So I'm looking forward to seeing how our schools and our school leaders really take the lead and make the most of these extra 30 minutes. And I will be supporting this.
Thank you, Member Lessons. Member Donnelly.
As inconvenient as this may be, by Alaska state law, we already have only 900 instructional hours mandate per year. That's as opposed to the vast majority of states that require 1,080. So that's 180 hours less our kids are getting than kids in many other states. In fact, the majority of other states. So we can't afford to be losing any more instructional hours for our students. And we also have only a minimum of 170 instructional days. And most other states have at least 180 up there also. So the combination of those two is really, I think, one of the factors that we're so challenged with our delivery of education here in Alaska.
Thank you. I just have a question, Dr. Bryant. Will we just not have any parent-teacher conferences, or are schools going to come up with a creative way to, what's that going to look like?
That's a good question. So we are not mandating that all the conferences that would have taken place on those conference days take place. But just like any time that a parent wants to request a conference with their teacher, they can reach out directly and they can schedule something at a mutually agreeable time.
Great. Thank you. Other questions? Yes. Ms. Shaw?
So from a student standpoint, I was curious because I've heard students saying about like practice start times and game start times of how they can't get out of the school and across down to Ben Boki in half an hour to 45 minutes. So do we know, is there going to be like a pushback of start times for practices or events, or is it just like coaches are being lenient with being late?
I'll ask Mr. Gustafson if you want to speak to any conversations happening at the campus level.
And I'm actually going to pass that on to Ms. Johnson-Strumper because I know they've been working on that.
All right, welcome. So to our student advisory board member, through the president, our competitions are being rescheduled when they need to be. So some of our games are being rescheduled, but some of them aren't. So it really just depends on when the start times were, when the students need to report, and if the school day impacted them. There are some rare instances where students will get out a little bit early so that they can make their competitions. All right. Good to see you, Ellie.
Thank you, Ellen. Thank you, Dr. Johnson. All right, seeing no other comments, no other hands, let's vote whenever you're ready. We'll do a voice vote, I'm sorry. because we're not all in the room.
Member Lessons?
Yes.
Member Holloman?
Yes.
Member Donley?
Yes.
Member Higgins?
Yes.
Member Jacobs?
Yes.
Member Wilson?
Yes.
Student Representative Shaw?
Yes.
President Bellamy?
Yes. And that motion passes unanimously to accept the administration's recommendation to approve adjustments to the school calendar as outlined in memorandum number 097. Thank you. And that brings us to item G, which is non-action items. These will come back before you next week. So that they will either come back to you as a consent agenda item or an action item. Sometimes they're both because they start out as consent and we pull them down into action. But you will see them again, not next week, but the next meeting. We have no one else signed up for public comment. So that brings us to the superintendent's update.
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening, ASD board and community. So January seems to have flown by, and with the aftermath of snowpocalypse and other urgent operational challenges behind us, I personally feel energized and ready to double down on what's needed to tackle our board goals, which are academic. This work won't be easy and will require major discussion on topics such as school start times, a potential ELA curriculum adoption, and a proposal for the timing of a potential 6th grade to middle school shift, with the potential adoption of a new ELA curriculum in particular. I am asking the team to begin thinking through ways to provide time and support to our teachers, who are critical players in ensuring a successful transition. Stay tuned in the coming months, but in short, I recognize that at the high school level, we offer teacher collaboration time with the late start. At the middle school level, we offer teacher collaboration time through the middle school model. I want to think through ways for elementary teachers to have opportunities to collaborate with their peers. In my view, that would be part of the strategy to meet our reading and math goals. I also want to recognize we're nearly at the finish line for adopting a balanced fiscal year 24 budget. It was truly a team effort over the past 6 months, and that also means that fiscal year 25 planning is right around the corner. It remains to be seen what will happen in Juneau, but in the absence of some sort of structural reform, such as a BSA increase, our deficit is on track to grow from what it was this past year. Even if the legislature provided generous one-time funds, it'd be difficult to restore services that have been cut over the years, as the bulk of the district's expenditures are recurring costs, our people. As I began my own advocacy work for ASD, I hear over and over again from some that this session is about school districts, quote unquote, asking for more money. So I want to clear something up. The districts around the state are not asking for more money. We're asking that systematic flat funding, which are cuts, is finally addressed after 7 years. And that's in the wake of chronically declining academic performance across the state. I love being a resident of the 49th state, but frankly, it's time to ascend from being ranked 49th on so many academic outcomes lists and start becoming the leader in the country for educating students. Cuts to education aren't working, and this is a window of opportunity to make it right. In partnership with state leaders, we can set Alaska up for success by doubling down on a commitment to ensure that our schools are great. So see you in Juneau. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Bryant. Any questions for Dr. Bryant? I'm going to go to Juneau with him. He's fired up and ready to go. Speaking of which, we will have a delegation in Juneau. We will have members Higgins, Lessons, and Wilson, along with 4 amazing students and teacher. What's Danielle's last name? Lewis. Miss Lewis will be the chaperone. Okay. Questions? Any questions, comments to the superintendent's report? Member Lessons?
Could you share, you said that the FY25 deficit is on track to grow. Do we have a number?
We can make estimates, but just a reminder, we really plugged a lot of our holes for this year's budget with one-time funds that will not be available going into the next fiscal year. So it could easily be over $80 million. And we don't have those funds to plug that gap this time around.
That's a good question. And something for us to all remember. Other comments? Okay, thank you. That brings us now to board member comments. Let's see, where am I going to start today? I'm going to start online with Mr. Higgins. Member Higgins?
Yeah, I don't get all the remaining time, but thank you. I want to just make a couple of comments. One is in regards to the shift in the schedule. It's not so much to me, how do we pick something that's going to be agreeable to all? It can't be. For all of the individuals have personal needs and conflicts. But I do applaud the superintendent and the way he went about it with communications and leaving it open for discussions and the process he had defined to us earlier. It makes a lot of sense that when you have that type of dialogue and you can do something like that, you're way ahead of the game. And I appreciate that a great deal. I'd also advise the superintendent, while we may be past part of the snow, the joke on the Tonight shows have been that they closed schools because it got too warm. And so this week, we're looking at a warming temperature with maybe some rain. So welcome to Anchorage again, and a new experience. And beware of what's coming because it can get, the warm weather can be just the opposite of what we hope in line with. And there have been times in the past where we faced times where we've had schedule changes, either because of volcanic ash hit the city and we had to be closed for a bit. Recall that, the earthquakes, a variety of things. But I like the approach that's being taken to handle that in regards to it. So my appreciation, and I do agree with everything the superintendent said in regards to finances. It's not just how we adjust to it, it's the cost long term. We've got a high inflationary rate and we have low adjustments from a compensation standpoint with salaries and the like. And we are, like the rest of the country, recruiting for positions that there were less and less applicants, it seems like. And that is going to impact us long term without the inflation adjustment factors as well. So some of this we're putting off because of budget, using budget savings in transferring that. And some of it is just postponing the inevitable that we're going to have a problem with this. So I appreciate that. I will not be in Juneau Sunday and Saturday and Monday, but if all goes right, I'll be back Sunday evening and then I'll be into Juneau early next week to be able to join some of the discussions with the legislators, and I'll be back and forth to Juneau to continue the discussion with them throughout the entire session. I have that opportunity and I'll take advantage of it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, let's go to Member Holloman.
Not too much to say, except tonight does seem like a night when we talk about a lot of different changes we're having to make in response to things that are happening, the weather, the legislature, budgets, etc. It always falls down to our building staff. The administrative staff in this building, of course, makes plans, and you could call them war plans, and everybody knows how well war plans work. They're great until the battle starts, and the battle is out there in the buildings. But again, having been there and talking to people, they do a great job once kids show up and they figure out what they have to do of making the situation work, and we shouldn't ever forget that. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Lessons?
Sure. I wanted to begin by saying thank you for those who organized and made our board retreat possible, and then the outside partners with whom we collaborated. And it was really valuable. I got to spend 3 of the last 4 days with this group. So we came together as a team. But I mean that in all sincerity. It was a good time to reflect, recharge, and renew. That was a theme, and I'm woven it into my comments. I wanted to say good luck to students. It's Battle of the Books season. And so thank you to all of the teachers and librarians who have been putting, and of course the students and the parents who have made this event possible. I think that the district battle is either this week or next week. I know that 5th and 6th graders, because I saw the picture, have read 2,731 pages. But as I was reminded, some of them have read those books more than once. So they're working hard. So good luck to all of the district participants, and thanks to everybody who participated at the school level. And then I just want to encourage members of the public. We heard people speak tonight on really important parts of delivering different mechanisms for delivering education through our instructional coaches, through ASD virtual, through classroom teachers, through support staff. We can't do what we want to do unless we have the funds that are necessary to make that happen. So I encourage members of the public to stay engaged with the progression of legislative activities, continue to share your stories with your representatives, and I look forward to going down to Juneau with Team ASD.
Okay, thank you. Member Wilson.
I also look forward to going to Juneau. And last year, the highlight for me was the opportunity to take students and a teacher with me to visit legislators. So I look forward to that again. It's an amazing experience for our students, and an amazing experience for our legislators to hear directly from our students and a teacher. So that look forward to that being the highlight again for this trip. Also wanted to highlight a few other things. The Alternative Schools and Programs Expo is scheduled for Saturday, February 4th from noon to 4 p.m. And this is an opportunity to come and learn more about the unique schools and programs that ASD has to offer. So please take a look at our website. There's a flyer on there. Again, it's February 4th from noon to 4. And also I have the great opportunity to attend the Junior Achievement Awards, and Dr. Bryant was there, to celebrate the Educator of the Year. So our Junior Achievement Educator of the Year is Sean Schubert, who is a teacher at King Tech High School. I've worked with Sean for many years. Yes, he's amazing. The energy level that Sean keeps, it just, I can't imagine how the students can keep up with him. He has such great energy. So congratulations to Sean.
Okay. Thank you, Member Wilson. Member Donnelly. Oh, I'm sorry. Before you go, Member Donnelly, let me ask Miss Ellie. Your comment.
Just excited to spend the last, I think I have 3 months and 3 weeks until I graduate. So don't have a countdown at all. Excited to spend them up here, and also excited to have my president-elect with me soon. And I'm going to go to a basketball rivalry game.
Thank you. All right. Now, Member Donnelly.
Thank you, Madam President. I got some phone calls today about one of the non-action items we have tonight that'll be up in a couple of weeks before the board, Memorandum 100, which is a revision to the student nutrition and physical activity policy. Some of my questions earlier tonight were addressed towards some of those comments that I received. So I'm interested in any specific suggestions to those schools that are currently using recess as a study hall for students having academic or behavioral issues, what kinds of options they should be recommended to utilize if they're not going to be able to continue to do that under this nutrition policy. I think we need to generate some specific suggestions for those schools. Also, Memorandum 98, which will be up next week or 2 weeks from now, which is in our boards is identified as patriotic exercises. I'm very interested in exploring some expansions to that specifically things that I've talked about before and brought forth before to committee regarding the Pledge of Allegiance, increasing the actual language in the policy itself regarding the compliance with Pledge of Allegiance, and also possibly considering some guidelines for Constitution Day, also maybe some specific recognition of Pearl Harbor Day and 9/11. And I continue to advocate that the national anthem and state flag song have some level of minimum use and instruction in our school district. And I might bring something up on those at that time. I just wanted to give public notice of that 2 weeks in advance.
Thank you, Member Donnelly. I think according to our process, though, we start those things in governance. You may speak to whatever you'd like during the debate or the discussion. But if you're offering changes, they start in governance, correct?
Point of order. That's not the way the Robert's Rules of Order work. That is not Robert's Rules of Order, Madam Chair.
Our process to get new policy is to go through governance.
Well,
are you thinking, are you planning to change this memo? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, I might offer amendments to the memo.
Okay,
but perfectly in order under Robert's Rules of Order, especially when it's to the same specific board policy section.
It is. It's just not the same thing. I don't see the patriotic and what else would you mention? You said patriotic, but we are forewarned and it's fine.
That's actually the name of the section. One of the two names of it is patriotic exercises. BP 6115.
Within BP 6115.
And I think I gave more notice than this board provided when they did the East High name change.
Thank you, Member Donnelly. Member Jacobs.
Thank you, Madam President. Did want to acknowledge that the change that we made towards school calendar adjustments earlier tonight will impact staff. And wanted to thank our education professionals across the district who are going to carry that burden. You're appreciated, and while the snow days and the plowing situation that unfolded across our municipality as it did elsewhere locally was out of the board's control. We know that that wasn't in your control either. So thank you for helping us make the best of an unfortunate situation. I will not be joining our contingent in Juneau, but I will be busy contacting legislators both in and outside of the Anchorage delegation, and did want to encourage the public to do the same. As new legislators were just sworn in, I think we have roughly 50% turnover. Anyone who's interested in finding out who represents you can go straight to the ASD website. Our asdk12.org/FY24 page has a link to identify who represents you. There is an ongoing week-long presentation by the Senate the Senate Education Committee, which is already digging deep into some of the financials of K-12 education funding. And so there's heartening news that a serious look at the challenge that we're facing, we've been grappling with all summer and fall, is being examined. So now is not too soon to take action. Please do contact your elected officials. While they certainly appreciate hearing from us as board members, I think the students will probably be better received by just a little bit at least. And so I'm hoping that trip goes well for our learners there who are able to make the trip. With that said, wanted to address the comments that were made earlier regarding our FY25 deficit. I'm hoping we can begin engaging in a conversation, an informed conversation, as we did with our FY24 budget regarding FY25. I think the opportunity that we have to be as transparent and information-based as possible as we approach our next budget season, being uncertain what our reality is, and given the $40 to $50 million in one-time funding we're having to allocate to make our FY24 budget whole, it's deeply concerning. And it could have been larger, but the board did vote to make some more significant cuts, which I think was a prudent move with the uncertainty in Juneau. So lots of work to do. Appreciate everyone's time tonight. Thank you.
And thank you very much. I have just a couple of things. Governance will meet this Thursday at 11. Is that right, Andy? Are you me? Yeah. No communications meeting, this month. Thank you. And I think, just a reminder to board members to get your questions in for the CCL goal monitoring discussion. Our next work session is going to be, I think on 2/7 will be our budget briefing. So we are moving along at a pretty decent clip.
Point of information, Madam
Point of
President.
information, yes.
If we're not having a communications meeting, I can't remember now which one was at 12 and which one was at 11. Okay. Is it too late
You're
to
at
move
11.
governance to 12? I can't hear you.
She can't.
That could be changed, I think. Okay, 11 o'clock sounds fine.
11, okay. So with that, I think, Andy, you got the answer to your question. I think I just wanted to just kind of, when I look at the list, I've got a list of 19 items here. And I don't even have the budget on the list because it's just like, it's got its own list, right? But we've got school starts, we've got the Abbott Loop. I want to thank the staff for the Abbott Loop discussion, the planning that's going into that. I could feel the hard work of the hands and the heart in that, so I appreciate that. Looking at just of all the things that we have to do, everything on this list is focused on kids. Whether we're looking at this changing our boundaries or school start, restructuring how we deliver instruction, I think I think we're in a good place. It's not easy, and it's not going to be over anytime soon. But I think we are focused in the way that we need to do so that our kids will get the outcomes that they deserve and that we desire. So with that, do you have any closing comments?
I just wanted to quickly share that as a JA board member, I had the honor of presenting Mr. Schubert with the award of Educator of the Year. He's truly phenomenal and it's well-deserved. And I shared to a crowded room of business leaders across Anchorage that the secret to meeting our board goals are retaining and attracting fantastic educators just like Sean. So congratulations, Sean, and drive safe out there. I hear there's going to be some freezing rain, so be vigilant.
He's learning. Okay. All right. With that, I will accept a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn. Second.
Moved in second to adjourn. Any opposition?